let me start off by saying I don't have all the answers. I often come off as trying to sound too profound, I think. I mean, that's how it sounds to myself. I sound like somebody who's full of themselves sometimes, like I don't know it all. I have just as many questions, if not more. Well, I have way more questions than I have answers. I'll put it that way. And I'm trying every day to answer those questions. And often it feels like I'm being pulled in 1,000 directions. I'm sure I'm not alone. I think some of it is based on my life and my own decisions, but I think also some of it is a design, uh, you know, like a reaction to society, like how maybe it's programmed. I don't know. I don't know if it's on purpose or just a flaw um, from I feel like it's programmed. I feel like it's on purpose. I feel like it's hard. It's hard for people to focus on what's important and make real impactful change if they're being pulled in 1,000 directions. And it's even worse if the directions you choose to take are not authentic to yourself. I believe we live in a society where we are influenced to act like what we see on the internet and what works, especially if you're trying to be an influencer or on YouTube or make any type of videos like this. When I first started YouTube, I wanted to do what I had seen others do, what I had seen quote unquote work, instead of just speaking from the heart, being myself, putting my thoughts out there, my wants, my dreams, my flaws. I was scared. I was scared to put that out there. I'm still fucking scared to put it out there. I'll be honest. It's hard. It's hard. There is a big part of me that wants to be listened to. I think it comes from wanting to leave some sort of legacy, but also making an impact, knowing that my time and my knowledge and my experience that I've acquired in my life isn't going to go to waste when I leave this planet. If I could put it out there for somebody else to use, to not have to go through something, to unlock something in their brain, to figure out something in their self, that's the purpose, I guess. That would be the purpose. And then I have times where I'm like, I try to make videos, I try to do stuff on the internet, and it corrupts it messes up my life, like not terribly, sometimes it feels like the universe is telling me, hey, this might not be the right this might not be the right way to go. This you might I might not, maybe I'm not supposed to make this video. And it's hard to decide whether that's fear and opposition, whatever you want to call it, trying to dissuade me, or the like opinions of others in my head, or whatever. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's hard to know if it's that or if it's actually the universe saying, like, hey, no, this isn't it. So I try to go with what feels right. If it feels right and it works out smoothly, then I feel like it's meant to be, right? But also I feel like we make excuses not to do stuff, not to try. And so I'm constantly torn between, is it one thing or the other? Is it the universe telling me don't do this, or is it my mind trying to make excuses? Is it my inability to handle the situation, the making of the video or whatever, whether it's anything I do, you know? And sometimes I'll have a good idea and it just won't work out, you know, for one reason or the other, and it upsets me. And then I have to reflect and say, well, why was it such a big deal anyways? Why was I putting so much thought into that, you know? Why can't I just be happy with, like, not doing that video, or with that not being a success? Like I said, I don't have all the answers. I have more questions than answers. But I think, you know, what I've been struggling with is whether, you know, I just live life and enjoy the moments, you know, go with the flow, or if I try to learn, if I try to overcome, if I try to challenge myself. It's much like Ricky and Julian in the Trailer Park Boys, because I was just watching them, and Ricky is much like the person that just is the person. Ricky is the person that gets drunk, eats chicken fingers, and Julian's the guy that's like, hey, life isn't about just getting drunk and eating chicken fingers. Why don't you try to do something with your life? You know, so I'm torn between the guy that wants to just hang out and chill and enjoy life, especially with my family, and the guy that says, this isn't it. And it's beating me up, I'll be honest. I'll be honest. It's hard to be honest, but we live in a world where it's so hard to grab attention, and it leads you to want to like do crazy stuff, extraordinary things, push the envelope, whatever, to grab people's attention. And I don't think that's the right direction, because you might grab people's attention and you might become a big success, but the world, that type of content, the people that consume that type of content, as soon as you achieve one thing, they want to see the next. It doesn't mean nothing. It's not lasting. I don't feel like it's lasting. It doesn't make a lasting impact. And sometimes I feel that way about these videos. Like, there's a million of these videos just drifting out there in the ether for anybody to stumble upon, and the more that's out there, the better, right? But then I'm like, well, it's just scrambled, and is it more important, or is it my own fucking self-righteousness? You know, I don't know. I don't have the answers. I don't have the answers, and I believe everybody's life is different. And, you know, that video, that chaoticness might help somebody in a way that they needed to be helped. You know, maybe they just needed some laughter, you know. And this video might help somebody that had a deeper problem, or whatever, needed to think some shit through deeper. I don't know. I struggle with knowing, to be honest. I'll probably never know whether there's real purpose to what I'm doing here or not. And I just heard something about Vincent van Gogh. He wasn't famous until after his death. And I often wonder, you know, will some of what I said be acknowledged after I'm gone? Will it take that long? And also, I laugh and say, you're no Vincent van Gogh, you know? And I believe everybody's unique, an individual, like, everybody has events that go in them, and I believe it's up to us to tap into it and to believe in our capabilities, believe in ourselves. And I believe society kind of scares you into not doing that, not stating your dreams, not stating your flaws, and kind of mimicking what has worked. So I could, I could go harass somebody at Walmart and try to make views that way. But I have deep respect for what people go through, and I know people are going through a lot of shit, and that might be the last thing that pushes them over the edge. And I would much rather be remembered for something different, something different. It doesn't make my contribution or my impact any more important, but if I let that if I let that make me feel like I'm less than, and I never try, then it's a shame. It's a shame. Just because I'm not some massive streamer that does accomplish one insane stunt after another doesn't mean I am not entitled to voice my opinion on here. And doesn't mean my contribution isn't important in one way or another. And I didn't realize that until recently. That all anybody has to do is be their self, and don't be afraid to express to the universe, to the world, that yes, I would like to be remembered. I would like to put out my value. I do have value. I believe everybody has value in this world, whether it's a homeless person or an ex-drug addict. And it's a shame that, a person might have to live with that their whole life. I couldn't imagine how hard it is to overcome that stereotype, that stigma, that title of ex-drug addict. You'll always be an ex-drug addict. You'll always be, a homeless person. Or you won't always be, but how much harder, I wonder, is it to overcome that with that type of title on you, with that type of energy put towards you, with that type of stereotype put on you? It makes it 10 times harder for somebody. And you have two choices. You either be the best homeless person you could be, the best ex-drug addict you could be, and overcome it, or you cry about it. You either express to the world who you are, and your dreams and wishes and your flaws, and put it all out there, or you try to hide. Or if you're like me, you're torn between doing one thing or the other, trying to just trying random shit. And I guess what I'm saying is I'm trying to figure it out myself. To be honest, this type of video feels better to me than trying to go do a prank at Walmart. That's chaotic. I don't want that energy in my life. Like, that's not me. But doesn't mean I don't find it interesting and funny sometimes. And I believe there's a point to it all, and a purpose. I'm not saying I'm more valuable than the next guy doing that, I'm not here to judge. Kudos to them for believing in themselves, for trying. you know? But when I'm being pulled in 1,000 directions, it's hard to know what directions is actually authentic to who I am and what's being motivated by something I've seen or a video or a celebrity or a famous person. And like I said in the beginning of this video, I believe that was a design. You know, I'm a millennial, I believe. I'm 32 years old. I believe we live in a tough spot between living half our lives without social media and iPhones and smartphones and in nature, and half of it on the internet. And I feel bad for the generations, you know, after me that didn't get to experience nature, that lived fully on the internet. How much harder is it going to be for them to decide what's authentic to themselves? You know, how many more directions are they going to be pulled in? How harder is it going to be for them to make an authentic choice? It saddens me, because if I'm having this hard of a time, how much harder is it going to be for them, right? And some people are better at it than me. So if you don't have a problem with it, great for you. You know, that's good for you. I'm happy for you. And some people, I believe, are in denial. They're in complete denial. And they're living completely unauthentic lives. And perhaps they think their choices are theirs, when really they're being influenced through one avenue or the other. And then you have people that see the programming and accept it, because it's a lot easier to accept the programming and to accept the cope than to, you know, challenge it and be authentic and, you know, brace the hardness or whatever comes with that. But at least they admit it. At least they realize it and admit it. Some people don't. Some people don't even realize it. And those are the real people I feel sorry for. At least I realize that I'm being pulled in 1,000 directions. At least I could try to make authentic choices to myself that feels right. At least I recognize it to some extent. And I feel sorry for people that don't. And I guess that's the point of this video. If you're being pulled in 1,000 directions, and if you don't know what's the right way to go, just stop trying to think about what has worked for others. Stop comparing your life to other people, and just try to do what feels right to your heart, to you. You know, I don't want to sound like a dang hippie, but go spend some time in nature and with your family, with yourself, with your loved ones in reality. And, you know, try to get back in touch with real life. That's the best advice I could give you. You know, other than making, you know, choices that feel right in your heart. I hope this video will help others. You know, it might not go mega viral or whatever like that. Perhaps I'll never be remembered as a Van Gogh, but at least I got it out there. At least I got it out there. I'm hearing noises. It's creeping me out, to be honest, but I'm going to end this video. Until next time, take care of yourself and stay safe.